Good morning, everybody, and this is your DAX day trade setup for today. So, question mark here is: do we have a higher low formed? It does look that way, and if you sort of look at the current trend line that's forming, you can see there are the higher lows. It's the third higher low at the moment. A couple of things we need to pay attention to. One is the Fibonacci, and you can see right off the 61.8 there. So yeah, you're looking for an extension to the upside basically, but we are in a downtrend, so that's something against us. Then you have a potential crossing here of the oscillators, which is quite far apart. Just want to get to the weekly before we get down to the rests. And you can see last week we had an engulfing green bar. We're still in a downtrend, very clear. I mean, I can extend this trend line all the way up to there. And you can see that is a trend line that we're flirting with at the moment. But you know, in my eyes, if I look at the weekly right now, this is sort of almost a piercing pattern here, and then we have an engulfing pattern. So you know, what are we looking for? We're looking for follow through. We're looking for continuation. In other words, I'm looking for a green bar on the weekly, and that's going to be a fairly bullish setup. Obviously, we still need to get above this 14,323 before we can actually be confident about that. But at this stage, if we start looking at what's happening, we've had a sort of up and a big down, and now we've got a little bit of an up forming at the moment for the week. So almost a range bar potential depending what happens today. But I am of the opinion right now that we need to be very, very cautious about chasing shorts on the DAX. So moving on to the 3 hour, and you can see here above the moving averages, below the moving averages, and in the moving averages right now. So obviously we still need to pay attention to this area. That's 14,323. You know, a break above that is going to break out of this range. At the moment, what we have is a pretty wide range, and now we sort of just playing around in the middle of the range. So that's just an indication of confusion. Now there is structure here. If you look to the left, you'll see we've had quite a bit of interaction here, and then you know, we found support there. When we broke through it, we never tested it there for resistance. We tried here, never broke to the downside, so that resistance has failed. We're now back above it. So the big question here is, do we find support here for another move to the trend line? If we break the trend line and find support here, then we're looking to this area, and then we're looking for the break. So that's a long-term outlook. If we look at the 1 hour, and this is where we want to be trading on from a day trading perspective. First things first. Yesterday, low, lower low. Watch my oscillators. We have our diversions. Okay, group to the downside, and then group to the downside as well. Oh, slightly to the downside, but separated far apart. And low, higher low. So we have diversions there. That to me is a potential double top setup. Now we've got a bit of a gap up this morning, which is something we need to pay attention to. But there is the neckline. There's the first leg of the double bottom. There's the second leg of the double bottom, and this is the neckline. So I should actually just use a proper level there. So we've got it when we're going to need to be down on the 15-minute to see exactly what's transpiring here. So we've got a potential crossover brewing at the moment, and you can see we've got the 33 and the 60 above the 155 here, and then you know we've got pretty much still the 60 is still above, 33 is about to cross, and then we're looking for a crossover in this area. So one of two things today: either we just struggle and we sort of continue going sideways with little direction, or you know we start coming back, finding some structure here, and then looking for continuation to the upside. This double bottom target is something like that. So that would take us back to the trend line. Okay, so let's get down to the 15-minute. And yesterday was not much to play with. I was sitting on the sidelines as well. But we did get a crossover late in the session, and we've also got above the 155. We haven't tested it. We tested it late in the session at the close, but we haven't tested it properly as far as I'm concerned. So I want to see us come back into this area for an opportunity to the upside. May not materialize because we do have a trend line here. So obviously, buyers are going to be coming onto the trend line and then just keep buying and while it meanders up. For me though, I'm looking for a solid bit of structure, and that is right here. So that's 13,925. I'm looking for a decent retest of that area. Not too worried about this diagonal trend line. I'm looking for structure. I'm looking for a pin bar, inside bar, engulfing bar in this zone with this gap close, and then I'm looking for us to go and target this diagonal trend line to the upside. Now, may not happen today, so we may just sort of muck around in some kind of a range, or just a little bit of volatility, because that may very well happen, because on the higher time frames we're still technically in downtrends. So it could be very volatile, it could be very meek and mild as well, but there may just be some catalyst just driving us to the upside. So typically on a Friday, you've got profit taking. People are not going to be sort of trying to hold shorts over the weekend. Not the cleverest thing to do in the market that's so volatile. So as far as I'm concerned, if we come back into this area, close the gap, there's opportunity to buy. If we start dropping below this area here, so 13,925, in other words, we get below it, come back, test it and start rolling, then my suspicion is we're more than likely going to try and test this low again and try and close on our low. So just before we close, get back to the weekly. If you look at that engulfing there, what they're trying to get, what the bears are trying to get, is a piercing pattern. In other words, we're gapped up and they're looking to close down here and halfway down the previous week's bar. That would be fairly bearish. Bulls obviously want us to close higher than what the previous week was. So they're looking for, we just get that in, previous week high is there, and let's just look at that on the hour. So this is the area that the the bulls are trying to get us to close above, and that's above the previous week's high. So that would be 13,963. And make sure we got that right, I think. No, we don't. Sorry. This is the area we're paying attention to. And that's the previous week's high there. Sorry. Scrap that. What they're going to be trying to do is closing above 14,061. So if the bulls can close above 14,061, in other words, by this trend line, then they have a fairly bullish setup. So again, coming back to the hour, if that happens, that validates this double bottom, which gives us a potential target at the trend line. Okay, anyway, so that's kind of the view I've got today. I'm not really looking for shorts here. That doesn't, not really interesting me in shorts if I look at some of the structure forming. But it could be just messy just to muck you around, so just extremely volatile. So just bear that in mind. You'll probably find some structure on we definitely find on the 50-minute, but you may actually find some even decent, half-decent structure on the 5-minute as well. And you can see what I'm talking about here. You can see there's structure for a little bit of a trade to the upside. It wasn't anything here. Definitely was stuff to the downside at the open, but apart from that, nothing really else. So anyway, that's me for today. Any pullback down here, I'm going to look at suspicion. I'm not going to chase at the short side, in other words, and I'll be looking for an opportunity to buy into it. I have a feeling that this double bottom is really in play, and that's what the bulls are going to try and drive. So we need to go with what is the strongest setup, and I think that's the strongest setup at the moment. Start dropping below that, I suspect we're just going to head into a bigger range. There will be a bit of a scalp to the downside available there as well. Anyway, hope that helps, and we'll catch up with you on Monday morning. Cheers for now.